Begin. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Kimberly Grote. I am the marketing manager in the UK for JobAdder, the leading recruitment CRM. And with me is Jane Jackson. I will have Jane introduce herself in a moment. And we're going to be covering why coaching helps to strengthen the performance of your candidates, the difference between interview prep, which is, by and large what recruiters have traditionally been doing, and candidate coaching itself, how coaching can improve diversity hiring, huge topic at the moment, obviously, the long-term benefits of effective candidate coaching beyond the immediate interview, and whether agencies should offer paid coaching programs. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to Jane to introduce herself and we'll get started.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and good morning to all of you in the UK. It's 8 o'clock in the evening in Sydney, and wherever people are watching from, hello. I'm Jane Jackson. I'm a career management coach. I've known Kimberly since she was in Australia in the Australian days, and it's lovely to be here. I'm a career management coach. I've been coaching for 20 years now in Singapore as well as in Australia, and I'm the author of this book, Navigating Career Crossroads, and so I live and breathe coaching candidates through, or my clients through their career transitions. And most of the people that I work with have gone through a redundancy, or they've just had enough of their previous roles and they're thinking of something else and they're looking for another job.
So let's dive in. So let's talk about why coaching does help to strengthen the performance of candidates. I mean, as a candidate myself, and I've obviously gone through that process through the course of my professional career, it is nerve-wracking. It's, you can have all the coaching in the world and that could all fall apart at the end when you're on stage, so to speak. So yeah, I'd like to get your input into why you feel that really does help the candidates.
Someone walks in to meet a recruiter, they're usually very excited and they really want to make a good impression and they feel a little bit nervous. And certainly, maybe if I take it from what the feedback that I get from my clients that I work with who have been working with recruiters and need to prepare for interviews and need to get their resumes up to speed and the whole shebang basically, is that when someone is going through a career transition, they're exploring what next. They want to get a promotion, they want a better job, they want more money, they want to change, they want fulfillment, they want to make a difference in the world, and basically they want something different, and it's all for different reasons. Some have gone through a redundancy, their confidence has been knocked, they are mistrustful. Others, they may have been in a unhappy environment, a culture that wasn't quite right for them, so they decided to resign, or they wanted to leave for whatever reason. It could be because they didn't like their boss, or maybe they were bored at their previous role. Many different reasons, or maybe they're just exploring. Now, those who are just exploring they come from a position of confidence, but those who are in between roles, I found, always are lacking a little bit in confidence. And so the reason why coaching would help to strengthen the performance of the candidates is that if you are able to really help them to build their self-confidence and self-belief that they can do it, they're going to walk into those interviews and hopefully ace the interviews. But if they go in there and they feel really anxious because maybe during the interview initial screening with the recruiter, they felt like, oh, I blew that and I didn't do that well, and oh, I'm never going to get it right, that's when they tend to come to me, and then I coach them through the self-belief. In fact, just yesterday, one of my clients, she was going for a public service role, and I was coaching her through the process, and she had had a very intimidating boss in her previous role, and she'd stuck it out for 2 years, and little by little it really chipped away at her self-confidence. But to look at her on paper, her resume, she was amazing, absolutely amazing. Whereas talking to her, it was a completely different person. And she said that she'd gone for so many interviews because her resume would get her interviews just like that, but she would never get past the first interview. And so as I was going through interview practice with her, she was not expressing herself with confidence. So we worked on her mindset, and I used some NLP techniques and a lot of different techniques just to help her. I mean, I even put on a YouTube video of Tina Turner singing "Simply the Best." Okay, so I use some unorthodox message sometimes, but we were there. It was a Zoom call, and it was really starting, pumping and getting her adrenaline going. And she goes, I feel 100% better. And then she went for the interview this morning, and she texted me and she goes, Jane, I did 150% better than I ever did. And no matter what the outcome is, I know I aced it in my mind. So now we're just waiting for the outcome. So coaching helps your candidates because you help them to build their self-confidence. And it does go beyond just, how do you answer interview questions?
Really, it's a good point because, you can go through the process of what the interview itself is, and
Yeah.
coach them through that process. But a lot of it is mindset, and
Yeah.
that requires a completely different approach. Um,
Mhm.
and
Well, I mean,
really,
I'll keep coming back to mindset because if you don't have the right mindset, and the same for yourselves, no matter what you do in your business and in your careers, before you became recruiters, you had to have that element of self-belief too. And of course, we're going to feel anxious when we're interviewing with someone who holds the power. And if you come from a position of confidence, and this is what coaching is. There's so much that you can do to help others as a coach. That if you help them to build a solid foundation, you know what will happen is that, I mean, it's so good for you as a recruiter too, because they will thank you for it. And I have repeat business, and people, maybe 3 or 4 years later, time for another job, I'll come back to Jane, or else they refer, their friends and, colleagues to me because they remember how they felt.
yes,
And there's a famous quote by,
Maya
is it
Angelou.
Maya Angelou, where people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll always remember the way you made them feel. And so if you as a recruiter make your candidates feel great and they progress in their careers, they'll remember you and they'll come to you for the next, open role that they may have as well. So it all comes around in the end.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point because the results is one thing,
Mm.
but results are out of your control. You can only
Hmm.
do the best you can as a recruiter. But if leading up to that, they've got a positive experience, then that means just as much.
Yeah, and you've got to think, not just make one placement, because I'm sure no one listening in is a transactional recruiter. I mean, you want to build good relationships because if you've got a client as well and you do well for them and you only give them candidates who really walk in, and if they think, wow, those 3 that you sent to me were incredible, that was such a hard decision, but they know that you screen well and you prepare your candidates well, they're going to really think of you as the recruiter of choice too. So I'm sure many of you already do that, but if there's some little missing link that I can assist with, then please let me know and I'd be happy to do so.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between interview prep, what recruiters
Mhm.
may be doing at the moment, and the coaching that you talk about.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Well, what I found is with interview prep, you know your client and you know what they're looking for. So there'll be specific questions that you will be asking them in order to ensure that they can do the job. And what I like to think of is if a candidate is going for a role, they're going to be successful if they fill 3 main things. Okay, and that is, can they do the job? Are they willing to do the job the way it's required to be done? So it's will do, so can do and will do. And the final thing is the best fit. Are they right for the culture or the team culture or the manager's personal preferences, with regard to the personality, so that it's going to be a good match and there is
Mm.
rapport. So if they fit can do, will do, best fit, that's fantastic. Now in the resume, that's the can do. Have you got the number of years experience? Have you got the qualifications, the certifications, the relevant experience that will demonstrate that you can probably do the job? Because the resume is only one part of the story, isn't it? And so when you interview, you need to help them to be able to verbalize what their personal preferences may be at the right time. Because, whether it's, part-time or working evenings or shift work or having to work the odd weekend or every weekend, and everyone's got their own preferences. You know, I like to work normal hours, and I don't really like to work on weekends, for example. Whereas one of my daughters, who works in hospitality and events, she loves it. Well, she's darn sight younger than I am, but she loves weekends and working on Christmas Eve. Well, to me, that's a party, or to her, that's a that's a wonderful thing, and it gets her adrenaline going. She loves it. So her willingness to work in a certain way is very different from my willingness to work. So we need to be able to verbalize that. So it's not just the interview preparation, it's what is it that the candidate really wants. Because as a recruiter, you don't want to just put them in a role. I'm hoping you don't just want to put them in a role so that you know you meet your KPIs. You want them to stay in the role, don't you? Because otherwise you're going to go through the whole process all over again. So if your candidate really knows what they want, it will help you to avoid putting the wrong candidate into the wrong role, or the right candidate into the wrong role, if you know what I mean. So if the difference between interview prep coaching, this is how you must interview for a specific role. These are the things that you can say to demonstrate you've got that capability. But that's just interview technique. And interview technique can be taught, but personal preference is so ingrained and so deep that I think recruiters need to understand what really makes your candidates tick, if you care. And hopefully you're all caring recruiters. I'm sure you are. But one of the things I would say, if you're going to be coaching someone through the process, it's okay, you're going for this role. What is it that makes this role appealing to you? What is it that you really want? And where do you hope your career to lead? So if you start by identifying what their core values are and what really drives them, and you know, perhaps you have a career anchors assessment, you may have a number of assessments that you take people through as well. But I found assessments are they're wonderful things, but they're only a launch pad for coaching, the coaching conversation. And the gold is in the conversation, to really listen to what the candidate is saying, because you've got to listen between the lines and ask them the right questions to draw that out of them. So it's powerful questioning and active listening. Those are coaching terms, but if you're able to do it well, then you'll really understand who that person is that you're working with and what really would be the right role for them. And if you can really tap into that, then you'll find that your placements will be more successful anyway. So you'll find out what their values are, their true career anchor, what motivates them at work and what demotivates them at work. It's just a conversation that you need to have. There's nothing esoteric about coaching. It's a conversation and really caring and listening to the other person. And so if you can find out, you know, little things can motivate someone. For instance, for me, a motivator is a short commute. Right? Long commute. When I was working in London years ago, it used to take me 1.5 hours to get to work, 1.5 hours to get home. And it wasn't just one train journey. It was walk to the train, take the train to Waterloo, take 2 tubes, and then walk to Curzon Street. And, you know, that took so long. And if it was raining, I'd be very grumpy. But even if I drove, the traffic was so bad from Twickenham into the city. It would take me an hour and a half in first or second gear because I was driving a manual. Drove me nuts. And I actually resigned because of that. So you've got to think of what is it that motivates someone. And it could be the money. It could be an office with an amazing view. It could be just a nice group of people to work with. It could be the job title. It could be, you know, proximity to home and not having to commute. So lots of different things. Find out, because that really matters. And what is it that demotivates them? If it's a highly political or highly competitive environment and they don't like that, you need to know as well, because that's something that really affects people's self-confidence. Because say if you market someone into a sales role, they've got, you know, really tough KPIs that they need to meet, and they're just not really a salesperson, but it sounded pretty good and they think, yeah, I think I can do it. But if they're in the wrong environment, they won't last, the minimum probationary period. And then you have to do the whole search all over again as well. So it's not worth putting a square peg into a round hole, is it? But if you understand them, then you can match it up with the right environment for them too. They'll really appreciate that. And then, of course, their tangible accomplishments and their transferable skills if they're making a bit of a change. And just find out what it is that's driving the change. Always
Mm,
find out, what is it that makes you want to leave that role? Or, what happened? How did you feel about the redundancy? And remember, when I was recruiting, so many of my colleagues would say, oh, redundancy, they were fired. Not true. Not true at all. A redundancy is a business decision. Good people are made, their roles are made redundant. They're not redundant. And that's something you need to work into that coaching conversation too, because they will question themselves. Was this redundancy because of my performance? It's never performance related. Okay, they would be fired. If they're fired, maybe it's performance. But if it's a redundancy, it's a business decision, and they need to get it into their head that it doesn't diminish their value. They're still the same professional they always were. The role has been made redundant. So they need to depersonalize that. I work a lot on that with my clients, because even if they tell themselves, I know it's a business decision, Jane, but it feels personal.
mm.
And so take the time to talk to them and ask them how they feel. They'd appreciate that as well. And then, of course, there is the interview coaching bit, which you're all very familiar with already. And, as you go through the process, the coaching through the negotiation process as well, and what to do, and, sending follow-up emails and things like that, they'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, just touching on that negotiation piece a little bit. You, this is probably an interesting time because you candidates may find that they are having to accept roles at a lower pay grade than what they had before. Businesses may be cutting costs and therefore reducing what they would normally offer in that particular role. So it'd be interesting to sort of touch briefly on the whole negotiation, because I know personally I'm terrible at negotiation. It's not a skill I've got. So anyone in my corner that can help me would be a blessing.
Oh, well, I can tell you, I'm here a plug. You can read my book. There's the whole section on, well, actually, this book actually guides you through the entire process of someone losing their self-confidence, being in transition, managing stress, trying to understand who they really are, the meaning of life, and then building their self-confidence, assessing what makes them tick, using that information to pull into their resume and LinkedIn profile, and then how to approach recruiters and networking and interviewing, the whole shebang, right up to the negotiation stage. But you're absolutely right. Right now, there isn't so much bargaining power with regard to negotiating a fantastic package, because so many businesses are hurting. So what you want to do for your candidate is to get the best deal for them, and also for your client, because they're the ones who pay you, to get the best deal for them as well. So it needs to be a win-win situation. So if you're coaching your candidates on how to negotiate, make sure you give them a reality check as well, and get the statistics out. People always love statistics, to say, look, this is what the unemployment rate is at the moment in this industry. This is how much it has shrunk, or if it has grown, it's in healthcare or something, this is how much it's grown. There might be a bit of leeway, although budgets have been slashed. So what they could do is, it doesn't have to be negotiating that the basic package, the monetary side of things. It could be negotiating perks, or negotiating a shorter probationary period, or negotiating maybe a sign-on bonus, or if they pass probation with flying colors, that's when there will be a slight increase in their base salary. So could be lots of different things, or even subsidized transport, or if there's a canteen there, it could be, I don't know, free meals, or whatever it might be. Perhaps additional few days annual leave. I've managed to help a client negotiate an extra 7 days annual leave paid, because this is when I was based in Singapore, and he had a aging mother in Denmark, and he wanted to have that extra time with her. I mean, of course, he could always take unpaid leave, but it would be nice to get the paid leave. All he had to do was ask, and he was actually surprised. He asked for 2 weeks. I'm going, am I pushing it a bit? Let's see how far we can get with this. And he actually got 7 days extra, which is amazing, and that meant more to him than any sort of monetary bonus that he would have got. It's just like that feeling of knowing the company cared enough about his family situation that they were willing to support him even before he
Yes.
started work. So that was really nice, good culture.
Yes. No, that's a fair point. It's not always about the salary, is it?
Yeah. Can I say something with negotiation though? Always let your candidates know, and for those of you who are already excellent negotiators, forgive me if I'm telling you something that you already know, but I don't know how much everybody knows. There's a saying that I always remember, and is, do not bargain yourself down before you reach the table. Because usually if someone's negotiating, they think, oh, am I asking too much? Am I really worth it? Or what if they take the offer away if I ask for more? And so, don't make yourself too nervous. Really build their confidence to say, look, you're not going into battle. You are exploring the possibility. And then if you're going to be negotiating, you must have tangible accomplishments to back up the value that you bring to the table. And if you're able to tell your stories, and I take my clients through a problem action result methodology to identify their accomplishment statements. Other people go through the STAR methodology or whatever you might use, but make sure they can verbalize that to back up the reason why they might be worth a higher base, perhaps, or worth that sign-on bonus, because these are the results that they could achieve for your client as well.
Okay, so let's touch on diversity hiring. It's such a huge topic. Like, where do you even start? But how does coaching sort of factor into improving diversity hires?
Mindset again. Okay, it's all mindset and perception, because first of all, as the recruiter, you need to understand your client and what is the culture within that organization, and are they truly supportive of diversity and inclusion within the workplace. And then you look at the candidates who are applying for those roles, and very often, if the culture in the company is a good one, you don't want the candidates to have a mental block about it, and go in with a negative mindset already, because you want them to be feeling confident, to really believe in themselves, and to focus on what they bring to the table, rather than focus on, I'm a little bit different from everybody else. Because we need diversity within the workplace, because it provides a different perspective, and we can all learn from each other as well. And so if you encourage your candidates to really believe in themselves and what they bring, rather than being fearful of, oh, how are they going to look upon me? Am I going to be the only one? And if they're the only one, then how good is that? Because it means that you've really got the opportunity to stand out for all the right reasons. And so what will be good is if the candidate goes in for an interview and doesn't have any preconceived ideas about there being barriers, then they can speak with confidence and be the people they really are inside, and then just project the value that they bring to the table. It's what they can do. It's not, what their personal preferences are, or what culture they're from, or whether they're male or female, or whether they've got grey hair or brown hair. And it's, there are so many barriers that we put up for ourselves, and most of them are imaginary. Now, if you know that the culture in an organization is not supportive of a particular group, then don't put your candidate into that environment, for goodness sake. Okay, just be open and honest about it and say, you, I need to look at, everyone who would be a really good fit for the organization. Yes, and what you're looking for is someone who is a good fit because they're going to be happy there, and you really want to be able to place your candidate into an environment where they're going to thrive. And I think that they would really appreciate that. I know this is open for debate because people get very emotional and heated about this sort of discussion. So, we can have a chat about it if there are questions too. Because there's no right or wrong with this. It really is making sure that you, as the recruiter, know that this could be a good fit. If you want to tell you a story, actually, I was placing candidates into this BA role when I was recruiting, and I spoke to the manager, and the manager told me what he wanted, and what he actually ended up hiring, or who he ended up hiring, so different from what he told me what he wanted, because I was listening between the lines and I knew who would be the best fit for him. But he was telling me this type that he was thinking, it should be. It's really quite funny. And so it's for a BA role, and he was saying, I really want someone who can, like fit in with the team, and we all go for a drink after work, and it's quite boisterous and loud, and we get quite competitive with each other. So you know what I'm looking for, Jane. And I'm saying, yeah, okay. And so he was telling me one thing, and I was not allowed to write it down because it's all equal opportunity employment and all this sort of thing. But I knew that the personality that would fit with him and his team, because I met them all. And there were three candidates who could do the job, and equally talented. They were all fantastic. But okay, I can tell you, two of them were male candidates. Okay, highly qualified, very, very good with their jobs, and one was female. Now he wanted someone who would fit in with the boisterous culture. So what he really was thinking would be a good fit. This woman was so amazing, so amazing. She actually was funny. She had an entire sleeve of tattoos. And I said to her, okay, well, just for that first interview, can you wear long sleeves, please? And she had a nose ring, and I said, just remove the nose ring. And she had wildly colored hair, and I said, can you just pull that back, just tone it down a little bit for the first interview. If you get the job, you can do whatever you want, but just for that first interview, please tone it in. But she was really very chatty and outgoing, and she was just a good fit. But I know that the hiring manager was thinking of a he, but I put her forward anyway. And the good thing was that he was so open. Her personality shone through. It was the personality that he was looking for. And the other two were great. Broke my heart to have to say sorry, didn't quite make it. But for her, she got the job because it was her personality, and all the other boxes that he wanted ticked, they were not ticked, but it didn't matter because it was a fit thing. So that was, improved certainly the diversity within that department because it all went one way previously. So it's just interesting, and this is like 8-9 years ago now. But I remember that because it was we were laughing about it afterwards, and I was saying, honestly, some of the things you were telling me, what you wanted, that wasn't what you wanted. You were saying it was the feeling. It was who was going to really fit in, and she was just amazing. So that was quite interesting. I don't know if I've gone off topic. Sorry, Kimberly.
No, definitely, it's all good. It's in a way, it's like dating, isn't it? You have in your mind this partner that you want in your life, and the reality can be so far removed, but in the end, that person could be exactly what you need. So
yes, I know. Having gone through 2 marriages, yes, I know. Well, still in the second one, but anyway, there you go.
All right. I have a question from Ben. So Ben asks, if we have a client who wants to exclude a particular group, shouldn't we focus on coaching them rather than just not supplying that particular group?
Oh, absolutely. I think it would be important to have a really good relationship with your client because you can't exclude a certain group. You have to be able to give them the choices, because they could be missing out on perfectly talented candidates, like my example, of this amazing woman, and you have, I mean, it's your duty of, as a recruiter, to be equal and fair and look at all of the candidates and then think about who would be the best fit and the best one for the role. However, if the culture, if you know, and you'll be able to tell if the culture is just not right, is there anything you can do about it? You need to ask yourself, if you're able to educate the client and you've got a good enough relationship where they'll actually listen, then that would be fantastic. That means you're actually making a difference in the culture of that organization, which would be huge. And that would take a lot of work and understanding and really developing that relationship. So it does depend on whether it's, a brand new client, and do you know that person that you're working with well enough? Are they willing to change or not? And if you find that they're unwilling to change and they're really stuck in their ways, if you put someone in there, well, first of all, it's probably unlikely they're going to get very far in the process, because then they'll be screened out. But if you really pushed them in there and it was a square peg in a round hole, would they be happy there? And I think I mean, I believe that, honesty is always the best policy as well. And if you let your candidate know, it could be quite challenging, but if you're up for a challenge, and some people really want to be there because they want to see and challenge themselves if they can make a difference. But it depends on the strength of character of the individual. I've seen too many broken clients of mine, like the candidates of mine, who've been in environments where they have been bullied in lots of different ways. Sometimes it's just being ignored, being excluded from events simply because they weren't the right fit. And it was a little feeling like, oh, I don't care if I don't go, or I don't care if I'm not invited. But over time, if that keeps happening and keeps happening, that's not a happy environment. And then sometimes they hang on because it's like, better to have a job than not have a job. I need the money, I've got to pay the mortgage. But it eats away at their self-confidence. And if it goes on for too long, oh my goodness, it's a lot of work to build their confidence back up again. If they've been in an environment that is just belittling for them, it's hard. I have one client, again, amazing credentials, a gentleman, and he had a female boss who had really made life hard for him and a number of other lovely men, within the organization. And it was a personality thing. That's all. And sometimes the drama is not with you or with your candidate. The drama can be with the manager. So you just be you need to be quite diplomatic in these situations. And if you fully understand the needs of your client and fully understand the needs of your candidate, if it's a good match, and as you say, it's like matchmaking, if it works, then what a great job you did. And that's when all the repeat business comes as well, and you'll be remembered for it.
No, I hope that answers the question, Ben.
Yeah. It's not an exact science, but it really, you need to be quite intuitive with regard to how far you can suggest something. And if you ask, you remember I spoke about active listening and powerful questioning. Here's where, if you can put on your coach hat when you're talking to your client and ask questions as to what is it that makes you feel this way, what prompted that comment, and then dig a little bit deeper, you might find what the underlying reason is. And that, once you know that, that's when you can start to hopefully be a catalyst for change. And if that catalyst is you, oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, no, good point. So you've touched on confidence being obviously a very great long-term benefit of effective candidate. Are there other benefits that you can touch on that beyond confidence?
Yeah, it depends on how far the coaching goes and what type of coaching, because I'm a career transition specialist, so I take people from their current state to their desired state. But in order to do that, I have to understand a lot about, what really makes them tick, what drives them, what's important to them in their lives, where do they really want to go, what's holding them back, is it real, is it imagined, and so I really take them on a journey, so that they can identify what is that little spark that makes them just think, oh, that makes my heart sing, and that's what I really want. And that's the fun thing about being a coach. You're able to take people on that journey if you have the opportunity as a recruiter to be able to do that as well. But the thing is that you're under the pump as a recruiter. You're busy. You need to make placements. You can't spend so much time on each and every candidate, to help them find the meaning of life. I mean, you've still got to interview so many people. You need to, prepare them for the interviews with the client, and then you've got to do all the follow-ups, and you may be working on multiple roles all at any given time. So your time is pretty precious as well. So if you're able to do a little bit of speed coaching, but at least to show the candidates that you care and you can help them and guide them along, and just by learning a few coaching techniques already, it's going to make a huge difference to the candidates. And once they have gained their self-confidence, and you continue to coach them into what they need to say that is going to be to hit the mark for your clients as well, then of course that's going to further the process. And if they're well prepared, it will make you look good to your client, because they're going to think, wow, you come up with you really screen well, and the candidates that you present to me, such great quality candidates, even if whether it's for an admin type role or a senior C-suite level role, depending on whether you're a headhunter or not a headhunter, then that makes a big difference, because it's all about making the right match, isn't it? And truly caring, and keeping the communication channels open, and being that conduit between the client and the candidate.
Okay. I'm curious to know if a recruiter currently did interview prep as we envision it to be, and wanted to move more into, or taking it that one step further into more of an effective candidate coaching session, what would that look like? I mean, if you were to go through that, in a rough way, how would you begin that? What elements of your sort of approach would they ideally incorporate to then develop a process that is much improved?
Okay, so when you're trying to fill a role, and a candidate submits a resume and they look like they might be a match because they can do the job, they've got the qualifications and the experience. So you call them for a screening interview, and then you ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves and their interest in that role. And then you think, oh, they sound pretty good and they communicate well. I'd like to meet you face to face, and then maybe you do your Zoom, or you're in your office. I don't know if most people are in the UK. I don't know if you've got any in-office interviews anymore. Maybe not. In Australia, we've opened up, and so it's almost business as usual. But certainly, I know in the US and in many places in Europe as well as UK, you're still in lockdown, aren't you? So it's going to be via Zoom. So phone first, I'm assuming, and then it's going to be Zoom for a slightly more formal interview. So when you go through that process, and say you've spoken to them over the phone, and then you're actually having that interview, I think asking them right at the beginning, what drives your interest in this particular role, just to uncover the desire, and what is it that's prompting the change. And it could be that they were stood down, they were furloughed, they're not going to be taken back, and it's like COVID. Okay, and then there's no underlying reason, it's just COVID has affected so many people, and they need a job basically. But then if you really want to coach them, you could say, okay, so you're looking for this particular role, is this would this be your ideal role? If circumstances were different, what would it be that you're looking for? And so now, because of COVID right now, they're going to want to get a job and get some money coming in, pay the mortgage and all of that sort of thing. So they'll appreciate you putting them forward for roles, and go through your usual process. However, if in addition to that you find out what's really important to them and what drives them, and you could say, if you could be in any role, if you had a choice, and time was not of the essence as it probably is now, and you could really make a career change, what would that be? And what's the reason behind that? I like to take the word why out of any coaching conversation, because when you say why do you think that, it's almost like you're challenging them as to, oh, that's kind of strange. Why are you asking? Why are you saying that? Why would you want that? So it's more like, what makes you wish for this? What prompted those thoughts? And so just take why out of the question, and and when you're in this environment, how does that make you feel? Okay, what would be the best case scenario for you? So ask those questions and start delving a little bit deeper. And if they tell you something, and you can ask them again, what is it that prompts that? And what is it that is so appealing about that particular role? And find out all those little things that make them happy. And you'll notice when they're responding to questions like that, that once they really tap into their true essence, or what it is that they really would like for themselves, their whole demeanor changes as well. And you'll see that they'll seem a little bit happier and a bit lighter, and it's something nice to be talking about. Yes. And you'll be able to gauge their confidence levels as well, while you're speaking with them. And then if you let them know that that's really interesting, there is this role, and this is the one that I know you're applying for, but I'm going to keep these other things in mind as well. And if ever there's something else that comes up that would be just the right thing later on down the track, I'd love to keep in touch with you. And just make some suggestions as well. They would appreciate that so much. But please stay true to your word as well, because I know we all get busy and may forget. But if you've got it in your candidate management system, then you'll be able to remind yourself too. And just little things like that to show that you're there for them and not just there for the client. It makes such a difference. I have so many clients, candidates that I work with, who they have a bit of a whinge about recruiters, just saying, oh, the recruiters never call me back, or I didn't hear back after I went for the interview, or I'm calling and calling and I never get any response, and I can't get any information out of them. And I'm thinking, really, I know a lot of amazing recruiters who do provide info. So who are all of these ones that they're complaining about? And I know, but I'll tell you one thing that happened when I was recruiting. I'm a coach through and through, and so after the GFC, when there weren't as many redundancies, so I wasn't quite so busy as a transition coach, I thought, oh, I'll join a global recruitment firm. So I did. But what was interesting was that because I'm naturally a coach, I just coach anyway. This is what I do. But one day, after a candidate had not got the role, and I knew that there might be a little bit of a tiny bit of friction with the manager and her, and of course they chose another candidate. She said, can you give me some feedback, please? And I gave her the usual spiel as to why it wasn't quite the right fit. She goes, no, Jane, everyone tells me that. Please give me feedback. Give me something I could work with. So I spent half an hour explaining to her about communication styles and how her communication style was quite different from the style of the manager. And that's why it was difficult for rapport to develop. And so then I explained the 4 different communication styles and what you do with each one to make a slight change so that your message gets heard, and rapport can develop. And then, because we're all in an open plan office, as so often recruitment offices are, my branch manager popped her head up like a meerkat. She said, Jane, is that revenue generating activity? Yeah, I don't have to make cold calls all the time for it to be revenue generating activity. I'm relationship developing. And actually, as it turned out, that lovely lady, she ended up being a coaching client of mine the next year as well, because she goes, I really appreciate, she goes, you gave me such good feedback and I could work on that. And that's all they want. They want real feedback, because that's like a coaching conversation too. But it does depend on, what the policy is of the company. So
Yes.
I never do as I'm told. So there you go.
Good thing you work for yourself then.
I know, I know. That's why I much prefer working for myself. I can do it my own way. And if it works for people and makes them happy, then I'm happy too. Hmm.
Okay. So let's then go to the final point about whether agencies should offer paid coaching. Now, I did a bit of Googling and I did find a couple of instances where this was the case. So I was quite curious. Yes, there's obviously that extra sort of revenue, if you like, for an agency. But A, should they be doing it? B, if they should, is there a best practice way of doing it? And how does that all work?
Mm. Well, the thing is that if you want recruiters to coach, then you need to provide them with coaching training, because a coaching company, it takes quite a while to be a good coach, because it's very different from recruitment. And I found that as I was a recruiter, because you've got KPIs to meet. There are certain things that you just need to do every day, that there's very little time left for coaching, to be quite honest. So if the company policy is that the recruiter as a coach, okay, then they might be able to provide training, so that recruiters can become coaches as well, and then you can leverage two skill sets in one. That would be fantastic if that would happen. But just having some basic training on a coaching conversation would be very helpful. So that's a little investment that the company might want to make, because not everyone is a natural coach.
Yeah.
And there is, coaching methodology that you need to follow, and there's best practice, and you've got to make sure there's duty of care, and if there's any concerns at any time, then you need to also be able to refer to maybe mental health professionals, that because I'm a coach, I'm not a mental health professional. I help people with managing stress, because that's what I'm also trained to do. But I may at times say, I'll need to refer you to maybe a psychologist or a counselor. And I work with a lot of people who have experienced PTSD as well, because I work with former police officers and I've done so for quite a number of years. And again, working with them coming out of a very traumatic time and those experiences and triggers, it's a different skill set that you're pulling upon in order to build their confidence to be able to market themselves and not take any rejection as something that's going to trigger them back into that post-traumatic stress. So yeah, I mean you really need to be careful and to do it right. But if the organization is willing to train the recruiters, it's a fantastic skill set to have. And I know many recruiters who would make very, very good coaches as well. It's a good transition, yes. They're not mutually exclusive. Or else if an agency would like to offer paid coaching, so that means, are you talking about the client is offering it or the candidate pays for it themselves?
Would pay for it themselves.
Candidates, yeah. So they could have that as an offer. I know recruitment agencies who have that, and what they do is they tend to bring in external coaches to say,
Yeah.
if you feel that you need this, these are the people that we can recommend. But then they're like independent
Mm.
consultants who come in, and they offer the services that way. But if you've got recruiters who are trained in some coaching methodology, you'll find that they're going to develop a stronger relationship with their candidates as well. And so often candidates feel like they're a commodity.
Mm.
And so just to have someone listen to them and really hear what they're saying, especially from a recruiter, they're going to be loyal to you for life. They're just going to love you. It makes such a difference. Mm. And so, yeah, I think having the option is good, but having recruiters at least aware of, how to start a coaching conversation, that will be very helpful.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. On that note, that's a lot of information. And if you want to reach out to Jane, what's the best approach, Jane?
Well, either on LinkedIn, if you look for Jane Jackson on LinkedIn, you'll find me, Jane Jackson Career Coach, or else you can go to my website, which is janejacksoncoach.com. And actually, for those who are already here, if you're interested in sort of building your brand as a professional, in your field, as an expert in your field, personal branding for your career success is a good thing to do. And I have a free webinar. I don't know if you're interested or not, but if you are, you can go to janejacksoncoach.com/3 secrets. And there's a registration link, and that's a free webinar that you can attend. And it's all about the basics of personal branding. And what's interesting is that those 3 top tips are the basic things that would be very nice for your candidates to know as well. So perhaps that'll kickstart your coaching thought process, because you can help your candidates through those 3 top things so they can brand themselves well, and start to think about the messaging they're putting across on LinkedIn as well. I'm a LinkedIn trainer too, so that's a lot of what I do. Once I know what makes them tick, then we rebrand and get them out there on LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
And
Thank you. I'll
yeah,
just share that in the chat for everyone to make it easy for you to click on. Jane, thank you so much for your help and for your insights. And I would definitely recommend any recruiter reach out, because this is someone who really knows coaching. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and I will see you on another session of ours. Thank you, Jane. Take care.
bye.